It's a pleasant Monday morning right here in the city of Lagos, and I'm welcoming you to the traffic report segment on the AM Cafe. And helping us with the traffic report this morning is Route Commander Florence Okpe. She'll be taking us through the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway as well as the Lagos-Abeokuta Expressway. I'm your host, Folashade Ogurinde. So let's link up now with Route Commander Florence Okpe. Are you on the line? Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma. How are you doing this morning?
Yeah. The traffic situation on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway.
Okay, please go ahead.
In Lagos, from Togi Ibadan to Nigari, the traffic is free. Nigari, Alapako, free flow. Alapako, Chidere, Chagamu interchange is also free. Kara, RCCG, the traffic is free. Kapasi, Mowe, is free. Then Ashishi, Ibafo, a slow movement due to the narrow lane that the bigger construction company. Then MFM, Mago, the traffic is free. Optic down to bigger, free flow of regular movement. Then the other section of the expressway, that is Lagos-Ibadan section, outward Lagos, bigger Optic is free, Mago is free, MFM is free, Ibafo, the slow movement due to the narrow lane. Mowe is free. Kara, Shagamu interchange is also free. Alapoko and Nigari down to Togi Ibadan, free flow of regular movement. There is no crash, no obstruction this morning.
Okay.
Then the Lagos.
Yes, now, okay. Madam Florence, throughout the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, most of the routes are free this morning.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So now let's move on to the Lagos-Abeokuta Expressway. Okay. So let's give us a detailed report on Lagos-Abeokuta Expressway.
Okay. Lagos-Abeokuta Expressway this morning, I'm going to talk on areas where we are seeing slow movement there. Abeokuta Lagos, we have slow movement of vehicles within Adibule toll gate. There's slow movement at Yamilubo. A vehicle Lafarge Cement, slow movement of vehicle due to bad portion of the road. We have a slow movement of vehicle at Iyanesele also, a bad portion of the road. Kola Soludo is also slow movement of vehicle. While other sections are free this morning. There is no crash, no obstruction on that section of the road too. FRC advised motorists to drive cautiously, avoid excessive speed, dangerous driving, road violations, and driving under the influence of alcohol. Consider other road users. As the rain intensifies, use common sense speed limit. Have good knowledge of the road conditions, watch out for falling trees and other obstructions caused by the rain. Ensure your wipers are in good condition. First defensively, only the living celebrate. Call FRSC toll-free number 122 to report any crash or obstruction. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Route Commander Florence Okpe, for that detailed traffic report along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway as well as the Lagos-Abeokuta Expressway. Good morning. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Well, up next is Newspaper Review. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a jiffy. Good morning and welcome to the newspaper review segment on AM Cafe, where we take a review of top stories making the front pages of our national dailies. I am Folashade Ogurinde.
And I'm Faith Agbetuya. Many thanks for joining the Lagos studio for the newspaper review segment.
All right, let's head straight to the Vanguard newspaper. The Vanguard this morning is reporting that governors inherit 3.9 trillion naira debts with the riders Lagos, Imo, Ogun, Bauchi, Oyo, Adamawa most affected. Our NGF has been assisting states to boost their IGR, says DG, says it helped states grow revenue from 707.9 billion naira in 2014 to 1.1 trillion naira in 2018. How we can make states viable, says stakeholders and experts, with the last rider saying EK Clerk, OK, Ekpo, Ongekpere, Ade Nikinju, others speak, and the story is on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper. I have a picture here, very interesting, with the caption, Anthony Joshua falls to a barrage of punches by Mexican Andy Ruiz, losing his world heavyweight crown yesterday. Most Nigerians commented about, Joshua's loss yesterday, and it was quite saddening to we as Nigerian fans. Anyway, moving from sports, just above the Vanguard masthead, there's a story here that says the first quarter of 2019, investors' stake in mutual funds rises to 29.7%. APC Oshomole, author of Confusion, says Oyegun. That story is on page 8 of the Vanguard newspaper. Police Latsma FRSC compound Oshodi Apapa Expressway gridlock, and that story is on page 10 of the Vanguard newspaper. There's a story here that says ASU shelves planned strike. That story is on page 13 of the Vanguard. There's a story here, APC to Governor Makinde, let your actions be guided by Constitution. That story is on page 11. Other stories making the front page of the Vanguard. Our constitution laid foundation for Islamization of Nigeria. It should be reviewed, says Khan. That story is on page 8. Afe Babalola University records first breakthrough in open heart surgery. That story is on page 6 of the Vanguard newspaper. And finally, Catholic bishops decry rising insecurity in Nigeria. That story is on page 4 of the Vanguard newspaper. I find this story quite interesting. Anthony Joshua lost his heavyweight crown yesterday to the Mexican Andy Cruz, and most Nigerians felt really bad for him. There were comments here and there all over the social media, and people were like, oh, didn't he train or something? Was he overconfident? What exactly? And I think you're a sports fan. So
well, just like many other Nigerians, I expected that Joshua was going to beat Ruiz.
But I think he lost at the 7th round.
I'm not sure of that. I even told some of my friends that, okay, you can bet. Let's just bet, and you see that Joshua was actually going to beat Ruiz hands down. But then it was the other way around. Ruiz beat Joshua hands down.
Yeah.
And we expect and hope that Joshua will get back his title after this season. All right, away from the Vanguard newspaper, I have with me the Guardian newspaper. The banner headline on that paper is how Boris' slow decision process may upset economy. And we have the rider, analysts urge speedy formation of cabinet. President Muhammadu Buhari's slow decision-making process could once again impede his second term in office and endanger the economy. 1 week after signing the 8.92 trillion naira budget and 5 days after the new administration was inaugurated, Buhari's body language, according to a source close to the presidency, seems out of tune with the urgent need to set up a cabinet, reset the ailing economy, and properly deploy the budget's borrowed funds. Well, that story is continued on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. I'm sure many Nigerians are actually waiting that this time President Buhari will be fast about making decisions so that the workers or drivers of the economy will resume to work on time and pull Nigeria's economy back on its feet. And just like this analyst is saying, this analyst is urging the president to have a speedy formation of cabinet. And away from that story, experts blame government policies, others as real estate growth recedes. And the rider to that story, single-digit interest rate. Experts in the real estate have expressed worry that the sector, which recorded growth of about 2 to 3% towards the end of 2018, has receded due to uncertainty in the country. That story continues on page 44 and page 45 of the Guardian newspaper. And moving on, PDP flays presidency's silence over Sage's attack on Supreme Court. That's on page 4 of the Guardian newspaper. And away from that, court strikes out suit against CBN on stamp duty collection. That's on page 7 of the Guardian newspaper. Joshua vows to reclaim his title after shock defeat by Ruiz. That's on page 69. Well, Shadi, I am sure Joshua will really get back his title.
I know you're his fan.
All right, away from that, Sanwo-Olu orders Lagos Badagry Road contractor back to site. That's on page 8 of the Guardian newspaper. And Lagosians are really going to see this as a good one. Contractors on the Lagos Badagry have been ordered to get back to work. All right, that's it on the Guardian newspaper. What more do you have for us on the Nigerian Tribune?
Okay, the Nigerian Tribune this morning is reporting that Oyegun tackles Oshomole, says it lacks capacity to manage a political party. And there's a quote here by Oyegun. He says Oshomole fails because it lacks the temperament that is required to run a political party. It lacks the capacity to manage the different interests and tendencies that constitute a political party. And the story is on page 8 of the Nigerian Tribune. Just above that headline, a story here says, don't attack president, governors, Kumuyi tells Christians. That story is on page 5 of the Nigerian Tribune. Transparency will be our watchword, says Makinde. That story is on page 32 of the Nigerian Tribune. After Babalola University Teaching Hospital records first breakthrough in open heart surgery, and that story is on page 34 of the Nigerian Tribune. There's a story here that says, article to Bukachua, time is running out, appoint new chairman for Presidential Tribunal, and that story is on page 8 of the Nigerian Tribune. Another story here that says 555 flags, cars with Biafra insignia recovered in Anambra, JTF says, and that story is on page 8 of the Nigerian Tribune. A story here says Zamfara judgment, PDP tackles presidency over Sage's comment on judiciary. That story is on page 2 of the Nigerian Tribune. A story here says, I'm not contesting to be speaker, says Dogara. The story is on page 6. SEC partners EFCC to tackle crime in capital market, and that story is on the front page and continued on page 16 of the Nigerian Tribune. A story here says Lagos, Rivers, Osun, Kaduna, Imo top list of highly indebted states, and that story is on page 2 of the Nigerian Tribune. We've had issues with, states owing, in order to fund capital projects.
Yes.
And, some school of thought will feel that each state should, generate revenue for themselves and use this revenue, to fund their projects and, payment of salaries and any other thing they want to do. Yes. Now, with regards to borrowing, I mean, it's common sense. Definitely when you borrow, you need to pay back.
Yes.
And when you keep borrowing, do you have the funds to pay back? And now this story is saying that we have almost I think more than five states that are indebted. That's Lagos, Rivers, Osun, Kaduna, and Imo states. And school of thought would feel that okay, the federal government should intervene in this. Maybe there could be
help them to
exactly
pay all these debts.
Well, beyond paying the debts,
okay.
Public opinion or analysts would feel that there should be a balance in owing, because
yes.
you can't keep owing
without paying back.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, that's right, and just like he said, we hope the federal government will come into it to reduce probably the amount of debts these states are using. But then we have some of these states that have their own money. Some of these states generate their funds, and we just hope they will be able to pay up.
Yes, and on health, we have a breakthrough here. Afe Babalola Teaching Hospital records first breakthrough in open heart surgery. I think this is really a step forward for the Nigerian health care system. You know, we have our teaching hospitals really, you know, taking the pace now. And I think it was even reported, I think 3 months ago, that a Nigerian doctor in the USA conducted the first operation whereby he took out an unborn baby, removed the tumor in her head, and put her back. You know, Nigerian doctors are quite brilliant, and you know, people would feel that what the Nigerian government need to do is to, you know, place more funds and support them.
All right, we have more stories on the Nation newspaper. Lawan Ndume step up race for Senate President. Kalu 58, APC senators unite for Senate leader. And lawmakers are getting set to elect leaders in the 9th National Assembly. But the battle for Senate President and Speaker House remained open at the weekend. You have that story continued on page 6 of the Nation newspaper. 5.4 trillion naira debt. AMCON opts for alternative recovery loan. We have the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria is seeking better ways to recover the over 5 trillion naira debts. Away from that, Kumuyitu Christians don't attack Buhari. That's on page 7 of the Nation newspaper. World Bank's $500 million facility for electricity. That's on page 41 of the Nation newspaper. And well, Nigerians, we actually expect that this $500 million will indeed be used to make electricity supply better in the country. Oyegun Oshiomhole lacks capacity to lead. That's on page 7. Follow due process. APC urges Makinde. MTN listing drives equities, and Eagles are condemned to win, says Pinnick, and that's on page 47 of the Nation newspaper.
And finally, the Punch newspaper quickly. PDP NWC meets this week over 9th National Assembly leadership. That story is on page 24 and 25. Vote leaders of your choice, ACA tells senators, reps elect. Story here says Abiodun makes a U-turn over Amosun's abandoned projects. That story is on page 10. Domestic debt, Lagos Delta Rivers, Akwa Ibom top list. That story is on page 34. Just above the masthead, poll panel, appoint your replacement, Atiku ask Bukachua. That story is on page 7. You lack capacity to run political party, Oyegun tells Oshiomhole, and the story is on page 25 of the Punch newspaper. Alake seeks police intervention in Egba, Awori supremacy crisis. The story is on page 56. And another story here says SEC sets up interim management team for Ohando. The story is on page 34 of the Punch newspaper. Finally, Boko Haram troops lament poor allowances. The story is on page 13. 14-year-old electrocuted while operating Chinese firm's faulty machine. The story is on page 4 and 5. Unizik scandal. Uniben denies issuing embattled lecturer examiner's certificate. The story is on page 4 and 5. Government assistance not getting to us, rice farmers cry out. The story is on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. And Faith, I guess that's all we can take today.
That's all. We just have to run off.
All right, many thanks for joining us on the newspaper review segment on AM Cafe. Over now to Ibadan for the rest of the program. I am Folashade Ogrinde saying good morning to you.
And I'm Faith Agbetuya. Have a good day ahead.